like to continue with a technology and business opportunity theme, and we're going to be exploring 5G and the opportunities that presents, whether it's all hype or whether it's a game changer. And leading this session will be Shiv from Manadala Insights. So I'm going to hand over to Shiv, say welcome, and thank you for joining us. And I'll step back and let you introduce your session and your panelists.
Thank you, Andrew. Hello to everyone attending today's MEF event. I want to thank Andrew, Dario, and the MEF team for inviting me to take part today. My name is Shiv Putcha, and I am the founder and principal analyst at Manadala Insights. We're a boutique industry analyst firm based out of Asia. I'm really excited about the upcoming panel discussion. The topic, again, what opportunities will 5G create for IoT? Is it hype or a game changer? So for this session, right at the outset, I want to say we're not going to have any slides, but rather have a more free-flowing discussion and hopefully keep the focus on the industry experts we have joining us today and get their insights directly. So from my point of view, IoT is not a new concept. We had several speakers talk about this. It's been around for several years, but as 5G networks gain traction and network deployments go live and commercial around the world, it is an important time to just pause and reflect on 5G's impact on the IoT market. So is 5G just another G promising a huge capacity boost? Or are there specific technologies and innovations that we can expect? Is the impact going to be significant? To discuss this and hopefully much more, we have a great panel for you today. Let me start by introducing the first of our panelists, Ankur Bhan from Nokia. Ankur Bhan is the founder and head of Nokia's worldwide IoT network grid, or WING, the business line that he's responsible for establishing Nokia as a frontline player in global IoT connectivity enablement for service providers and enterprises. Previously, Ankur held several leadership roles at Nokia and Infosys in strategy, portfolio development, and establishing consulting and professional services in telecoms. Ankur, welcome.
Thank you, Shiv. Glad to be here.
Great. And let me also introduce our second panelist, Jimmy Jones, who is the Chief Security Officer at Zariot. Jimmy is a telecom cybersecurity expert and the head of security at Zariot. His experience in telecom spans over 20 years, in which time he's built a thorough understanding of the industry, working in diverse roles, but all building from early engineering positions within major operators such as WorldCom and vendors including Nortel, Genband, and Positive Technologies. In 2005, Jimmy started to focus on telecom security, eventually transitioning completely in 2017 to work for a specialist cybersecurity vendor. He now brings all that experience to Zariot. Jimmy, welcome.
Thanks, Shiv. It's great to be here.
Great. Gents, we have a fair bit of time, so don't hold back. Please give me all the answers you can think of. So let me, I've taken the time to sort of, I've kind of introduced you both, but I want to give you both a chance also to talk about your company, your role, and so on. So Ankur, let me start with you. In terms of Nokia, what is the core proposition that Nokia is bringing to the IoT market, and what is your role specifically?
Oh, thank you, Shiv. And Nokia brings a full stack, IoT capabilities for operators and enterprises. And of course, at the core of this IoT stack is IoT connectivity, with a solution that we call as WING, which stands for Worldwide IoT Network Grid. So we're offering, I would say, a differentiated architecture in IoT connectivity enablement that sort of, enables low latency, lower cost, regulatory compliant IoT connectivity service for enterprises. But not only on the connectivity layer, but we also address, additional layers in the IoT stack, be it device management. We have a platform called Impact, or in application ecosystem. And we have recently launched what we call as a Nokia data marketplace, because IoT is really all about, leveraging the data and making use of those insights. We also work together with the rest of the ecosystem to bring together an application portfolio in a marketplace. So we help operators and their enterprise customers benefit from several building blocks to really leverage full outcomes. So particularly for my role, I'm leading this business line for Nokia, which comprises of Wing, the Nokia Data Marketplace, and our streaming analytics platform globally.
Thanks, Ankur. And just very quickly, so your core customers are the service providers or enterprises also, as in do you go directly to sort of enterprise to, or is it through the service provider?
Well, our platform and solutions have been built keeping end enterprise customers in mind. I mean, let's take an example as an automotive OEM, and they are looking to connect their assets not just in one country but across different markets and geographies. So we have really built our proposition and solutions keeping these enterprise customers in mind. But the way we go to the market is in partnership with mobile network operators, and today we have signed up more than 20 mobile network operators that are already connected to this Wing network and this ecosystem of IoT to really accelerate not only IoT in their local markets, but also benefit from this global federation that Nokia has created for operators across the globe.
Thanks, Ankur. Jimmy, let me bring you in and ask you the same question. And I know we've had your CEO and others from Zariot come on, but for the benefit of anyone just logging in, just tell us about Zariot and your role specifically within Zariot.
Sure. So Zariot is a cellular IoT connectivity provider, but we are slightly different in the fact that we focus a little bit more on security. So we strongly believe that IoT should be built on secure foundation, and that's really twin pillars, in my opinion. That's connectivity. Obviously, the reliability has to be there, but also security is fundamental, and that's core to where we see our role in making our customers' IoT deployment successful. My role is head of security, and I recently joined Zarya only in the last few weeks. And I'm here to look at and maintain our security in the face of ever-evolving threats, and also looking to promote end-to-end IoT security with our customers. So we're looking to provide the support to allow them to realize their goals. And I see that as central. We need to secure the customer's vision for their IoT applications and take away that overhead and that headache so they can go on and innovate in whatever they're trying to deliver. So the goal is really to help end-to-end IoT security and make that security as agile as our customers' business. And we're basically focusing more on the enterprise and the enterprises who are looking to who understand the opportunity and understand the potential of IoT, but also realize that that future connectivity needs to be secure, both in availability, reliability, data security, privacy, all those sort of things.
Great, thank you for that. So before we dive straight into 5G and all those questions, I want to take a moment to talk about the IoT story so far, and just kind of use that as context. We talk about 5G's impact specifically. So again, Ankur, let me begin with you. But IoT has been around for some time, and it came with a lot of hype. So let me ask this simply: so do you believe it has lived up to the billing? And if not, what are the primary causes? So
absolutely, Shiv. I think it's a really great question out there. So of course, IoT came up with a lot of hype and projections around billions of IoT devices all across. What I would say at this stage, that we are crossing a tipping point in the IoT, where IoT is becoming mainstream in enterprise digital agenda across different segments. I cannot really name any sector or any industry where it'll be left untouched by IoT. So I think there's a strong acceptance and I think the initial proof points have been met in terms of the value proposition of IoT. Um, and I would say not just in the enterprise context. I think even in the consumer context, we are seeing many of these IoT devices all around us, be it all the smart home use cases that we have. So I think there have been benefits that have been proven, but the key question would be that has it really scaled up to the initial expectations? And perhaps there is still work to be done, and I would say, as it is with any new technology, standardization really plays a big role for a mass scaling of those use cases. And I think, IoT still has an additional challenge of multiple of these technologies coming together to really make the end use case happen. So, be it connectivity, be it computing, be it application, be it a platform. So it's not just a one set of technology, and importantly, to really deliver the benefit to the enterprise, you need to be really integrated with the OT systems of those enterprises. And of course, Jimmy has been touching upon the security aspect and how critical that is, for the real scaling of IoT. So I think is still work to be done across multiple of these segments. But clearly, when we're talking to our customers and to various ecosystem players, I think, the proof points are already being felt. And now recently with COVID-19 pandemic, I would say, many use cases are accelerating. I mean, the remote monitoring, which is really a quintessential IoT use case across industries, is gaining a lot of importance across, be it a supply chain, be it in the retail, be it in the manufacturing segment as well. So we are seeing a lot of adoption. Of course, COVID-19 has brought in its own set of challenges. Connected car was also one of the prime use cases, but the car sales have taken a dip. But we believe that to be a temporary, phenomenon. Of course, there is some of these ecosystems are being reshaped, but we really believe IoT is a really key building block in these future value chains across different industries, and that's really a strong point that we see. And of course, we all need to work together to accelerate it further as well.
Thanks, Ankur. Jimmy, I mean, do you largely concur with that?
Yeah.
I mean, or are there specific causes, maybe, challenges around security, maybe it could be device management, or others that you think have kind of, well, if you agree, of course, I mean, what are the things that may have held back?
I totally agree with Ankur. I mean, the estimates vary massively on how many connected devices there are, but I think we can safely say it's in the billions. So that means that hundreds are being connected every second. So from that point of view, you could argue that IoT is already a success. But a lot of those connected devices, well, one, they go unnoticed because they're discrete, exactly as Ankur says. They're energy meters, they're security cameras, trackers, and stuff like that. So we don't really, I don't think we really comprehend quite how many there is actually out there. However, I still see that as a problem, because to me, that's more machine to machine than true IoT. They basically perform just a single, very siloed role of reporting in very closed environments, and they're very, very good at it. But in my point of view, the IoT should actually do something with that data. Unless it's being combined with other information to create new value opportunities, then it's not really IoT, and that doesn't live up to the hype. Obviously, there's some very big exceptions like Alexa, Apple Watches, Ring doorbells, things like that, and they successfully make the jump. And I think it's no coincidence that they're hugely popular, because I think they really, really show the way. But Ankur is entirely right. I think we're at a watershed moment, because two things are happening. The people who actually understand the nuts and bolts of the technology, they're slowly starting to get their heads around what it can actually do and what it can mean and what it can actually deliver. But I think also the technology is catching up. I know we're going to talk about 5G today. I think it is a time where we're moving, we're getting higher speeds and lower latency and stuff like that. But I think when we bring that together, it'll allow a new wave of innovation from those people who don't work so much in the industry, the sort of out of the box thinkers. who haven't been able to really do what they would like to do. They've been stifled by the technology a bit until now. I think that's the key. I think when that happens, that will increase IoT's visibility, and it will allow it to better fulfill the hype.
And you know, while I have you on this topic, let me just sort of ask a quick follow-up. Do you think, you know, is that across the board, meaning for all industries, or are there some sort of segments or verticals perhaps that have moved further along? You know, I mean, I have done better on the IoT story so far. I'm just curious, like, what your view is on.
I think certain very specific use cases, that they're very easy to understand. The benefits are obvious. They're very low risk, so the project can be easily explained and deployed. Energy meters, logistic trackers, alarms, and things like that. I think it's not so much the industry, it's when we move to higher complexity and higher jeopardy that's when things start to become a problem. So it's not so much, I think the industries that are very aligned with the simple solutions, they have engaged well, and at this initial stage they've moved much quicker with IoT. But in the end, to really leverage IoT, you have to do more with it. You have to move to the next phase. You have to action the intelligence. You have to essentially achieve more. And I think that's more of a industry-wide dilemma. I think everybody's going to come into that as we move forward and as new opportunities come on.
Great, thanks. I just want to pause for a moment to encourage any questions from the audience. You know, if you have them as we go along, please do, you know, drop them into the Q&A box. Ankur, let me now. I think that's a good segue to sort of move into 5Gs more specifically. So, you know, obviously, the first question that comes to mind is, you know, is 5G relevant for IoT, and you know, or is it even sufficient? So what I mean is, of course 5G will bring greater connectivity. We know that, higher speeds, a lot more capacity and so on, but is that going to be sufficient to boost IoT, or are there other critical sort of IoT enablers that rank higher than 5G in your view?
No, Shiv, I think great question. I think, look, first of all, before touching upon 5G, I think I'd like to make a remark that we consider connectivity as an oxygen for IoT. Without connectivity, you know, IoT doesn't work, right? Connectivity is required to take the data from device to cloud or wherever the compute really is. So I think it's really critical component of making the IoT happen. 5G, of course, is the latest, you know, generation of wireless technology that we have, with a lot of promise, not just in the consumer segment, but also in the enterprise context as well. And not only 5G brings, you know, the massive performance and an efficient architecture, but critically it also brings some new capabilities, you know, that previous generations of wireless technologies did not have. Like, for instance, a low latency communication or a higher device density, and also a fully automated and a completely new transformed architecture that really drives automation to the maximum. And I think, you know, with all of these elements bring together, the 5G technology is set to become a universal connectivity fabric for enterprise digital transformation. So whatever be your, you know, use case, I think, you know, 5G does provide a lot of critical capabilities, either to drive, you know, a lot of performance and massive amount of capacity, but also to really support some of the critical communications, be it low latency communication. And we are seeing, you know, some great examples in promoting safety in the transportation that really has going to have, you know, a second or a third order impact, not just in one industry, but across, you know, multiple industries and human life in general. And then we see, you know, impacts across transformation that it can drive on the manufacturing segment, where you can really have now the dark factories, where you can have a you know, robotic sort of control on the factory floor, or some of the immersive experiences that you can drive, you know, in the retail segment, that really is going to transform some of these industries in quite significant ways. But I would really remark, more than capacity and more than low latency, what really is what I think what really gets changed is the architecture. And now with 5G, you have a fully programmable core that can really help you bring connectivity to be controlled across the value chain, right to the edge of the network as well, which allows enterprises to embed this programmable connectivity into their value chains and really drive a lot of automation in the way they are executing their business processes. So that's really a fundamental reorientation, and it'll get manifested in various network slices that we will see across different verticals. So I think there's a lot of hope, but I would still say it's early days. It will not be in one day where you will have a flick of a switch, but I think the impact of 5G will be felt in increments. Initially, we have non-standalone architecture widely being deployed, which still has a 4G control plane, but now there is a 5G standalone architecture being moved, and then we go to release 16 and release 17, features that really bring more and more capabilities. So I think it's going to be a long journey, but we already see some promising use cases being trialed across multiple industries.
Great. Thanks, Ankur. Jimmy, would you concur with that? Or, Ankur mentioned the edge, so there is obviously, this whole piece around edge compute is a very important area, but are there other emerging technologies, that you think will be critical to IoT going forward?
Yeah, I think, well, I agree completely, but absolutely everything in 5G screams IoT to me. All the specified goals and targeted support look to me to be there to drive IoT adoption. But I think connectivity is nothing without innovation, and innovation, flexibility and speed that have driven the success of the cloud is key, I think, to be delivered with 5G, because I think successfully and comprehensively integrating those two, the connectivity and the cloud, is the real game changer for IoT. And I think Ankur is entirely right. At the moment, we're only at the very, very beginning. Enhanced mobile broadband is really just a continuation of telecom's obsession with getting higher data rates. However, the ultra reliable low latency communication that you mentioned, I think that's the beginning where we can really see a difference. We're already seeing initiatives like AWS Wavelength that's enabling multi-access edge compute, and I think that will open up, exactly as he said, it'll open up a huge potential in industry, or industry 4.0, the augmented reality and all those weird and wonderful applications. I'd say that is the one technology that 5G has that will really provide the wow moment. If we can get that ultra low latency down, and we can get it connected to the cloud, and we can bring that innovation in that way, I think that's where the new iPhone, the new wow moment comes. And I think in the end, IoT needs to be driven by the application, not driven by the technology. And if we can make that happen, and I think that's key to that, that's going to be the key to IoT success. And I think 5G can do that. And I think we need to work out how we plug those together with multi-access edge compute and the cloud. And I think that those two together, I think, are the two technologies that could really change the world.
Great. Yeah. So let me ask you, sort of, Ankur, you were talking about release 16 and stuff, but from an end user perspective, obviously there's a lot happening in the standards bodies and things that they should be looking out for. So what are the markers, in terms of that they should be keeping an eye out for? What are the timelines, for some of these specific features? You're talking about low latency and other stuff. So are there particular markers that they should watch out for in terms of availability of this technology?
Absolutely. So I think, as I said, 5G will come in, capabilities will come in phases, and already what we are seeing, being deployed across different markets, a non-standalone architecture to begin with, but some operators have already started, deploying a standalone core and a new radio as well, which really delivers the massive broadband capacity, the initial use cases being fixed wireless access. But we also see, in the upcoming releases, the capabilities around low latency communication and higher device density, which particularly is really going to be significant for IoT, for all of these new use cases. But I would say, already the operators are and customers are trialing out, some of these new capabilities. There's a lot of interest in the automotive segment, how to really leverage, the current capabilities of IoT, but also, what is really coming up in the pipeline. There's a lot of interest also in the video communication, I would say, and video as a sensor. Really, you don't really need tons of sensors, but you can do a lot of if you can run analytics on top of video, and 5G really delivers to all these promises. So many of these capabilities are going to be available incrementally, over the coming years, and I think it's really important for enterprises to really drive their digital agenda in lockstep with some of these technology capabilities that become available.
Right. So if I so start trialing now, I mean, when really soon, is that a reasonable way to summarize sort of what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the trials are already underway. I mean, just to give you an example, with Wing, we already have upgraded our infrastructure to support 5G, for supporting these customer trials. So yeah, it's not something out there in the roadmap. It's already, live and working together with initial customers.
Great. Thanks, Ankur. So Jimmy, I would be remiss if I did not ask you to talk about security. So, with so many sort of connected endpoints, there already are several, but they're going to be even more. And now, as sort of 5G comes along, it's going to support a lot of mission critical kind of applications as well. So how critical is the role of security here? Since you're uniquely placed to talk about this, kind of talk us through some of the key challenges or the approaches that you think need to be taken. How should an end user be thinking about this?
Well, first of all, my job title is head of security, so obviously I'm going to say it's absolutely integral. But I do actually totally believe that IoT, as we know, has the potential for physical implications, and that means that not only is the impact more apparent, so and far-reaching, but it's harder to deny. There's a lot more breaches than we actually know about. I can say that for sure because I come from a cybersecurity background for the last 4 years. We don't hear about all of the breaches, and in an IT environment, that's easily done because you can recover the systems pretty quickly, and you can move forward. With IoT, it's going to become much more apparent, which is that what that does is it magnifies the level of impact. If you magnify the level of impact, that magnifies the level of reward for a hacker. And what you're doing there is you're pushing a key component of security, because temptation is the real pusher for how much the likelihood on your system being attacked, and also the amount of perseverance they're going to apply in that attack. So with IoT, you're already up in the stakes. And that means people know that it's going to be visible, and you're more likely to pay. And we can see that already with some of the attacks that have happened over the period of COVID. Also, with security on IoT and operational technologies, the recovering those systems is a lot more time consuming. And it's because it's a lot more time consuming, it takes a lot more effort, it's a lot more expensive. So that needs to be understood as well. The other thing with IoT is twofold. First of all, it's very complex. So you're looking at multiple elements. You're looking at the device, you're looking at the network connectivity, you're looking at the applications that run that device. Unless you can see that end to end, then you have to then you have a security issue, because it doesn't matter where your system is breached. When it arrives on CNN, it just says you've been breached. It doesn't say which component has been breached. So what that means is you do have to start to drive security in every decision you make as early as possible. Security by design is something we hear, we it's something that's pushed a lot by NISA, the security agency for the EU, and everybody else, OWASP and everybody. So it's something that's obviously going to be important moving forward, and we need to make sure that we don't get into a situation where we're so obsessed with going to market very quickly that we start to use all off-the-shelf components. I know that has to be done on certain times, but if you don't understand what you're building from the start, you can end up with a sort of Frankenstein's monster of a solution, and that really doesn't work well for security. I don't think it's all bad news though, because I think what's actually happened over the time of the pandemic is people have started to see what cybersecurity actually means. So phishing and smishing attacks, they've all been very highly publicized, as have the ransomware incidents we've seen a lot of lately. And I think what will happen is that security and personal privacy is going to be something that will drive buying decisions, and buying decisions in IoT in particular. And the reason I say that is you only have to look at the number of people who migrated from WhatsApp when they changed their T's and C's. I think when you're talking about something that can actually affect your family and their health, for instance, or at least some sort of safety or privacy, then the same people who buy organic groceries to protect their family, they'll look to protect their children from negative impacts of IoT as well. So if you can prove your commitment as an enterprise into security, and you can show your diligence in delivering that security, I think you'll differentiate your product and address what is normally a very lucrative demographic. So I think there's a lot there. I think I could speak for about 20 minutes on 5G security and where I see IoT security, but I don't think you really want that. So I'll probably leave it there, but I think preparation is key, but I think the differentiator that you can give your product doesn't mean that security is going to just drag your business down. It should be looked at as an opportunity as well, and that's obviously where we're coming from at Zariot.
Thanks, Jimmy, for that. We're starting to run out of time here, and I see some questions coming in from the audience too, so I'm going to speed things up a little bit. But I want to, the last section to be at least a quick conversation about kind of use cases and business models. So, Ankur, let me ask you sort of to kick this off. If you caught some of the earlier sessions, some of the comments made by the panelists today would suggest that the majority of IoT use cases, can be handled by 3G, 4G today. But so as 5G becomes available, what new use case categories should we be thinking about? Is it computer vision, robots, something else? Maybe just give me like your top three, and I'll pitch it to Jimmy as well. So.
Absolutely, Shiv. I think you're absolutely right. I think most of what we see as a monitoring type use cases can be handled by earlier generation of technology, and that's really great, right? Because that gives you a key capability to really understand where your assets are, how are they doing, and that can be adequately handled, right? What 5G then allows, is let's say a new level of situational awareness, right? Video being one of the prime example, and many enterprises are looking at, how can they use video as a sensor? So rather than having a multitude of sensors to measure the temperature, to measure, the humidity level, just by taking a video feed and driving a computer vision on it can give you a completely new level of intelligence as well. So I think that's really key. We see a lot of 5G applicability in intelligent transportation system, not just in the car, but across the cellular V2X scenario to really make it more safer driving. We see a lot of relevance on the manufacturing segment as well, where automation and productivity. So that's what I would call top three. But maybe let me slip in AR, VR, the gaming. You can't really take it out. I think that's really big as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to obviously enterprise is going to be a huge sort of part of this, but consumer, I mean, and that has applicability to the enterprise side as well too, right? So AR especially. Jimmy, your top three?
My top three. I'm a bit reluctant to answer this one because I've got this feeling in 5 years' time someone will watch the video and say, "Where was that guy living under a rock?" But I will go with Industry, I think, will be early movers. I think we're already seeing that with private 5G networks arriving in factories and docks, and that makes total sense to me, that they're controlled environments. If you're a manufacturer and you can monitor your environment conditions, your machinery performance, supply chain, sensors, and feed all that data into AI or machine learning, then obviously you're going to gain improvements and your smart factory is going to be more productive. Agriculture I would go for as number 2. For similar reasons, for productivity. But I think the interesting one here is the 3GPP narrowband IoT release 17 came out in last month, I think. And it included the ability to use normal 5G devices in conjunction with low orbit satellites. So no special antenna, you just got the normal IoT device with its normal antenna. And I think that really brings something extra for coverage. I don't know exactly how it will be used, but it seems to me that getting to those remote places, it would really fit well. And for the consumer, I think IoT for renewable energy is happening at exactly the same time as IoT is starting to, I think, take a run up as well. And I think we'll see innovation around that. For instance, even this week, I never knew that electric vehicles can actually provide energy to the grid as well as pulling energy out of the grid. I didn't even know you could do that. So when we're talking to electrical EV vehicle chargers, and that's a more interesting use case than, say, just smart meters. So I think there's plenty of innovation there, but they would be my 3.
Okay. And thanks for that. You actually answered a question that came in about satellite, at least partially. Ankur, I'm going to give you the sort of last word here, because I wanted to ask about business models, but there's a question from the audience also. It's say, are MNOs really understanding the opportunity at hand? So I want to repackage that question a little bit and say, are managed services the way to go forward? Through a telco, is that the way forward for most end users?
No, absolutely. I think we are talking about emerging technologies, and for emerging technologies to go mainstream and accelerate, you need to really look at the business models, right? And I think all the ecosystem partners really need to come together for enterprises to trial these new technologies in a more cost-effective way. So clearly, the business models, the pay-as-you-grow as a service business model, is going to become mainstream. With a consumption-based model link, we are already seeing great example of how cloud computing has really transformed and scaled up innovation in that segment. I would say the same applies in the IoT and 5G segment context as well. So absolutely, Shiv, I think that's what Nokia is strongly believing and pushing as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I think we are now officially and completely out of time. So I want to thank Ankur, you and Jimmy, both of us, for joining. And thanks so much for your valuable insights today. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to the organizers for the next session.
Thank you, Shiv. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks, Shiv.
Thank you both.